Hi everyone, today I'm going to be reading an article entitled How to Make Tehran Blink. This was in last year's Newsweek. Oh, my hair, I need a haircut. Okay. Alright, ready? How to Make Tehran Blink by Scott D. Sagan. Given Tehran's defiant response to the European and American effort to constrain its nuclear program, it is time for bolder diplomacy out of Washington. U.S. President George W. Bush should take a page from the playbook of Ronald Reagan, who negotiated with an evil Soviet regime, competing in the war of ideas, but addressing the enemy's security concerns through arms control agreements. Iran's intransigence is both deeply unfortunate and perfectly predictable. It is unfortunate because Tehran's refusal to suspend its uranium enrichment operations immediately, as demanded in July by the UN Security Council in a legally binding resolution, suggests that Iran is moving more quickly than expected toward a nuclear weapons capability. Tehran has now turned the nuclear crisis into a test of the whole UN Security Council system, and Russia and China's current position, threatening to veto any biting sanctions against Iran, suggests that the Security Council may well fail this crucial test. Tehran's response is predictable, however, because the offer on the table contains both inadequate economic carrots and barely credible threats of sanctions and military force. The carrots appeared impressive at first glance. In return for a suspension of enrichment, we reportedly promised to provide light water nuclear reactors and to help Iran with civil aviation and telecommunications technology. But we did not offer the one incentive that might possibly work: security guarantees that could reduce Iran's desire for nuclear weapons. This omission is striking. The Iranian government can't talk openly about their security concerns because that would blow their cover story, that the nuclear program is only for energy production, and Washington does not want to discuss such worries because it wants to keep open the possibility of removing the regime by force. Security assurances are not on the table, U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice too cleverly argued this spring. It is a little strange to talk about security guarantees. I thought the Iranian position was that they weren't developing a nuclear bomb. This is partly a crisis of our own making, as the Bush administration has practiced this reverse of Teddy Roosevelt's maxim, speaking loudly and carrying a small stick. Think about how Tehran reacted when Bush stated in his second inaugural address, "The rulers of outlaw regimes can know that we still believe, as Abraham Lincoln did, those who deny freedoms to others deserve it not for themselves, and under the rule of a just God cannot long retain it." Or when Bush dramatically told reporters last April that all options are on the table, in direct response to a question about whether he was considering a nuclear attack against Iran. Such statements only encourage Iran to develop a nuclear deterrent quickly, before the United States can carry out its perceived aggressive intent. Last month, Iran's National Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani pointedly complained about such rhetoric. How can a side that wants to topple the regime also attempt to negotiate? Given the current vulnerability of U.S. forces in Iraq, the deteriorating situation in Afghanistan, and the lack of Israeli success against Hezbollah, Iranian officials seem confident that they face no immediate threat of a U.S. military assault. But they are clearly worried that Bush just might attack Iran right before he leaves office in January 2009, or that his successor might do so once U.S. forces withdraw from Iraq. The best way to prevent a nuclear Iran is for Washington to offer the kind of security assurances that might reduce support in Tehran for building a nuclear arsenal. It will be hard to make such assurances credible, but a public U.S. promise to take forcible regime change off the table and a UN Security Council commitment to protect the political sovereignty of Iran could help. Involving the Security Council could also pull China and Russia back into the Non-Proliferation Coalition and enhance the UN's legitimacy. Non-Proliferation Coalition. And enhance the UN's legitimacy. There is very little time left, which means negotiations should begin despite Iran's unfortunate opening position. Tehran's response reportedly indicated a willingness to negotiate all aspects of its nuclear program, so working out an agreement for Iran to limit itself to low-level uranium enrichment might still be possible. This would work only if Tehran accepts full IAEA inspections and a freeze on future centrifuge construction. Will they? The one thing that might cause Tehran to do so, and that would compensate for any loss of face, would be an assurance that the United States will not launch another preventive war as it did in Iraq to remove the Iranian regime. If, in turn, we get a nuclear-free Iran, that's a good deal for the West as well. This was written by Sagan. Sagan is professor of political science and director of the Center of International Security and Cooperation at Stanford University. Okay, I'll upload this now.